Admiral Jaewon Kim stared through the thick glass of the command center. Below him, Earth was dying. The planet that had been home to 12 billion people now burned under alien fire. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were nothing but ash and melted metal. The Vorthak ships hung in space like giant metal spiders. They had been there for 6 months, slowly killing everything that lived on Earth. Their weapons fired beams of pure energy that turned mountains into glass and oceans into steam. The aliens did not want to talk, they did not want to make deals, they only wanted humans to die. "Admiral, we have maybe 2 hours before they finish charging the planet killers," said Commander Dong-Soo Park. His voice was calm, but his hands shook as he held the reports. "The shield generators are failing. We cannot stop them anymore." Jaewon nodded slowly. He had known this day would come. The Vorthak had been very clear about their plans. They wanted Earth's rare metals and crystals that lay deep underground. Humans were just animals to them, no different from rats or insects, things to be removed so they could dig. Far below in the underground city of Neo-Seoul, Captain So-Young Park ran through the narrow tunnels. Behind her, 50,000 people followed in a long line. These were the last civilians on Earth. Everyone else was already dead or had escaped on the earlier ships. "Move faster," she shouted. "The transport ship is waiting, but it cannot wait long." Her younger brother Taemin helped carry an old woman who could not walk fast. "Sister, will we really make it out?" he asked. So Young did not answer. She could not tell him that the transport ship was built for 20,000 people, not 50,000. She could not tell him that many would die, even if they escaped Earth. The Vorthak hunted humans across all of space now. There was nowhere safe to go. In his secret laboratory deep under the Himalayan mountains, Dr. Hun-Woo Lee worked desperately on his research. For months, he had been studying every piece of information about the Vorthak that humans had found. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The aliens had done this before, not just once or twice, but 17 times. 17 different species had been wiped out completely. The Vorthak would find a planet with intelligent life and valuable resources. They would study the species for a few years. Then they would come with their fleets and kill everyone. Each time they used the same method. First, they would destroy all the military forces. Then they would slowly burn the cities and farms. Finally, they would use their planet-killer weapons to break the world apart and dig out what they wanted from the pieces. "They are not conquerors," Dr. Lee said to his assistant. "They are farmers, and we are the weeds they pull before planting. Their crops." His computer showed the data he had gathered. The Vorthak had perfect records of every species they had destroyed. They kept videos and samples like a museum collection. Humans were just number 18 on their list. Above Earth's orbit, Commander Jin Ho Choi sat in his small command ship. Around him, 200 other ships waited in the darkness. These ships were special. They had been built in secret using technology that the Vorthak could not detect. Each ship could carry 1,000 people and had everything needed to survive in space for years. "All ships report ready," said his communications officer. "The Ghostwire network is online." The Ghostwire was humanity's greatest secret weapon. It was not a weapon that could destroy ships or planets. It was a way for all the human ships to talk to each other instantly, no matter how far apart they were in space. The Vorthak did not know it existed. Jin Ho looked at the small screen that showed Earth. Soon his homeworld would be gone forever, but the 200 ships would carry humanity's survivors, their knowledge and their memories to the stars. Most importantly, they would carry humanity's anger. "Begin the Exodus Protocol," he said. The ships started their engines and began to move away from Earth. Each ship went in a different direction. Some headed toward the outer planets. Others aimed for distant stars. The Vorthak could not chase all of them. On Earth, the last transport ship lifted off from Neo-Seoul. So-Young Park stood on the bridge and watched her home disappear below. The ship was crowded beyond belief. People sat on the floors and stood in the hallways. Children cried for their parents. Old people prayed to their gods. "Will the engines hold?" asked Taemin. "They have to," So-Young replied. She did not tell him that the engines were already working too hard. She did not tell him that they might explode before reaching the meeting point in space. Back on the orbital station, Admiral Jae-won Kim received reports from all the escape ships. Most had made it away from Earth safely. A few had been caught and destroyed by Vorthak patrol ships. But the majority of humanity's survivors were now heading into the darkness between stars. "Admiral, the planet killers are fully charged," reported Commander Park. "They are aiming at the major cities." Jae-won nodded. He had chosen to stay behind with a small crew to operate the defense stations until the very end. It was not because they could win. It was because someone needed to witness what happened next. Someone needed to record it and send the truth to all the escape ships. "Begin recording," he said. "All frequencies. Make sure every human ship receives this broadcast." The first planet killer beam struck the area where New York had once stood. The energy was so powerful that it went straight through the planet and came out the other side. Cracks appeared across entire continents. Oceans began to boil away into space. Dr. Hyun-woo Lee felt the mountains shake around his laboratory. Rocks fell from the ceiling. His computer screens flickered and went dark. He grabbed the data storage device that contained all his research about the Vorthak and their previous victims. "If any humans survive," he said to himself, "they will need to know what these monsters really are." The second planet killer beam hit the opposite side of Earth. The planet began to break apart like an egg with cracks running through the shell. Pieces of continents drifted away from each other. The core of the planet glowed like a small sun. "Admiral." Jae-won Kim spoke into the recording device as his station shook and twisted around him. "This is Admiral Kim of the Earth Defense Force, final transmission. Earth is gone. 12 billion of our people are dead. The Vorthak have taken everything from us." He paused as another explosion rocked the station. Through the window, he could see Earth coming apart piece by piece. "To all human survivors listening to this message, remember what they did to us. Remember our dead. The Vorthak think they have won, but they are wrong. We are still alive. We are still human. And someday, we will make them pay for what they took from us." The third planet killer beam struck the core of Earth. The planet exploded. In a flash of light that could be seen from other star systems, where Earth had been, there was now only an expanding cloud of hot gas and broken rock. Admiral Kim's message reached all the escape ships through the ghost wire network. On every ship, humans stopped what they were doing and listened. Children heard about the death of their homeworld. Adults wept for friends and family who had died. But underneath the sadness, something else began to grow. So-Young Park stood on her overcrowded transport ship and listened to the Admiral's final words. Around her, 50,000 refugees were silent. Even the babies had stopped crying. "Sister," whispered Tae-min, "what do we do now?" So-Young looked out at the stars. Somewhere in that darkness, the Vorthak were already planning their next attack. They would hunt down every human ship they could find. They would try to finish what they started. "Now we survive," she said. "And then we learn. And then we make them sorry they ever heard of humanity." Across space, 200 human ships carried the last members of their species away from the graveyard that had once been Earth. They had no home to return to, no safe place to hide, nothing but anger and the will to live. The Vorthak had made a mistake. They thought they had killed humanity. Instead, they had created something much more dangerous. They had created a species with nothing left to lose and everything to remember. In the darkness between stars, humanity began to plan their revenge. 15 years had passed since Earth died. The humans who survived had changed. They were harder now, colder. Living in spaceships and hidden colonies had made them different from the people who once walked on green grass and breathed clean. Air Admiral So-Young Park stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked out at the Kepler 442 system. This was humanity's new home, though it looked nothing like the old one. Instead of cities on a planet, they had built their colony inside old cargo ships and mining stations. Everything was metal and artificial light, but it was hidden, and that made it safe. "Status report," she said to engineer Dong-hyun Yoon. "We now have 47 ships connected to the main station." Dong-hyun replied. "Food production is at 90% of what we need. Weapon manufacturing is ahead of schedule. But Admiral, We are still missing too many basic supplies. So Young nodded. It was always the same problem. They had the people and the anger to fight the Vorthak, but they lacked the resources to build a proper war fleet. Everything had to be stolen or salvaged from abandoned worlds. Across the station, tactical specialist Yoonji Nam trained a group of young humans in combat. These children had been born after Earth's death. They had never seen a blue sky or felt rain on their faces. All they knew was the inside of spaceships and the need to fight aliens who wanted them dead. Remember, Yoonji told her students, the Vorthak are bigger and stronger than humans, but they are not smarter. They think like a machine, always following the same patterns. That is their weakness. One of the students, a girl barely 16 years old, raised her hand. Teacher Nam, why do we not just find a faraway planet and hide there? Why must we fight them? Yoonji's face grew dark. Because hiding is not enough. The Vorthak will never stop hunting us. They killed our families. They destroyed our world. Some things cannot be forgiven. In another part of the galaxy, Captain Mi Young Song led humanity's intelligence fleet. These ships were small and fast, designed to spy on Vorthak communications and movements. For years, they had been learning everything they could about their enemy. Captain, we have intercepted another data transmission, reported her communications officer. It contains information about the collective's structure. Mi Young studied the data on her screen. What she saw made her hate the aliens even more. The Vorthak collective was not just one species. It was 12 different alien races working together, with the original Vorthak as the leaders. The other species believed they were partners in building a great galactic empire. They did not know that they were really just tools to be used and then thrown away. The Vorthak had files showing their plans to eventually eliminate their allies once they were no longer needed. Fools, Mi Young whispered. They help the Vorthak kill other species, not knowing they will be next. Meanwhile, Dr. Haewon Shin worked in her laboratory studying captured Vorthak technology. She had been Dr. Lee's student before Earth died, and now she carried on his research. What she found gave her both hope and disgust. The Vorthak had changed themselves with artificial biology to become perfect warriors. They were stronger, faster, and more aggressive than their natural form. But this change had created a weakness. Their enhanced bodies needed a special protein to survive. Without it, they would die within weeks. Interesting, Dr. Shin said to her assistant. They made themselves dependent on biology they can only get from certain species, including humans. This explained why the Vorthak kept detailed records of every species they destroyed. They needed to harvest biological materials before wiping out their victims. Humans were not just in the way of mining operations. They were also a source of food for the aliens' artificial bodies. Far away in the empty space between stars, Commander Young Soo-oh led what humans called the Ghost Fleet. These were ships that had survived by going completely dark after Earth's destruction. For years, they had drifted through space like dead metal, with their crews in hibernation to save resources. Now they were awake and active, but they had learned to live like scavengers. Young Soo's people were experts at finding and taking apart the wreckage of destroyed civilizations. They could build weapons and supplies from almost nothing. Commander, we have found another graveyard system, reported his salvage chief. Looks like the Vorthak hit this place about 8 years ago. The species was called the Delphani. Young Soo studied the report. The Delphani had been aquatic creatures, living in great ocean cities on their water world. The Vorthak had boiled away their seas and left the planet as a dry, cracked ball of rock. Millions of the fish-like beings had died screaming as their world turned to desert. Any useful salvage? Young Soo asked. Their quantum processors are intact. We could use them for our ship computers. Also found some of their historical records. Young Soo nodded. Take everything useful and copy their records. We need to learn from every species the Vorthak killed. This was how humanity survived now. They picked through the bones of dead civilizations, learning from the mistakes of others. Each destroyed species taught them something new about how the Vorthak fought and killed. Back at the main colony, Admiral So-young Park received reports from all the human fleets through the Ghostwire network. The news was both good and bad. Humanity was growing stronger, but so were the Vorthak. Admiral, Captain Song reports that the collective is preparing to attack 2 more species, said her communications officer, the Delphani in the Kepler 186 system, and something called the Resonant in the Vega region. So Young felt a moment of sadness for the doomed aliens. She knew exactly what was going to happen to them. The Vorthak would spend months studying their targets, learning their weaknesses. Then would come the ships, the bombardment, and finally the planet killers. "Do we warn them?" asked Commander Jinho Choi, who had become one of her advisors. The question hung in the air like poison. So Young looked around the room at her officers. These people had lost everything to the Vorthak, their families, their homes, their entire world. Now they had a chance to save other species from the same fate. But warning the Delphani and Resonant would reveal that humans were still alive and watching. It would tell the Vorthak that their communications were being intercepted. It would put all the human survivors at risk. "We vote," So Young said finally. "All senior officers. Do we reveal ourselves to save these aliens, or do we stay hidden and learn from their deaths?" The debate went on for hours. Some officers argued that saving other species was the right thing to do. Others said that humanity's survival was more important than alien lives. In the end, the vote was close. Vengeance won over mercy by just 3 votes. "We watch and learn," So Young announced. "We will record everything the Vorthak do to these species. We will study their tactics and weapons, and we will use that knowledge to destroy them later." Some officers looked uncomfortable with the decision, but most nodded in agreement. They had tried being kind and peaceful on Earth. It had gotten them nothing but death and destruction. Captain Mi-young Song received the orders and positioned her spy ships to watch the coming attacks. She felt sick about letting innocent aliens die, but she understood the logic. Humanity was still too weak to fight the collective directly. They needed every advantage they could get. Over the next year, the humans watched in silence as the Vorthak destroyed both the Delphani and the Resonant. The aquatic aliens fought bravely but uselessly as their oceans were boiled away. The crystal-based Resonant tried to negotiate and surrender, but the Vorthak killed them anyway. Dr. Haewon Shin studied recordings of both attacks. "The Vorthak are efficient," she reported to Admiral Park. "They use the same tactics every time. First, they destroy all space defenses. Then they target population centers. Finally, they harvest biological materials before using planet killers." "Any weaknesses?" asked So Young. "Several. They always attack with the same ship formations. Their communication frequencies are predictable. Most importantly, they get overconfident. They do not expect strong resistance after the first phase of attack." So Young smiled for the first time in months. "Then we will give them something they do not expect." The human fleets began to change their strategy. Instead of just hiding and running, they started preparing for war. Engineer Dong-Hyun Yoon worked on new ship designs that used Vorthak technology against them. Tactical specialist Yoon Ji-nam developed fighting techniques based on the aliens' weaknesses. Most importantly, Dr. Shin began working on biological weapons that could target the Vorthak's artificial enhancement. If she was right about their protein dependency, she might be able to create something that would kill them from the inside. "How long until we can fight them directly?" "So Young," asked her senior staff. 5 more years minimum," replied Jinho. "We need more ships, more weapons, and more people trained for combat." "Then we wait 5 more years," So Young said. "But when we strike, it will not be to defend ourselves. It will be to make them pay for what they did to Earth." The human survivors had made their choice. They could have tried to contact other species and build alliances. They could have focused on finding a safe place to rebuild their civilization in peace. Instead, they chose to become something the galaxy had never seen before. They chose to become a species dedicated entirely to revenge. In the darkness between stars, humanity. 25 years after Earth died, humanity had become something their ancestors would not recognize. They lived in the darkness between stars like ghosts, striking without warning and disappearing before their enemies could fight back. General Jae-hun Baek stood in the command center of the human war fleet. Around him, 400 ships waited in the shadow of a dead moon. These were not the cargo ships and transports that had carried the survivors from Earth. These were warships, built from salvaged alien technology and human anger. "General, the Wraith squadrons report ready," said his tactical officer. "Admiral Han is in position near the Vorthak supply depot." Jae-hun nodded. The humans had learned to fight like no species before them. They had no homeworld to defend, no civilians to protect, no infrastructure to maintain. They were a military force that existed only to kill their enemies. Admiral Subin Han watched her target through the sensors of her flagship. Below her, a massive Vorthak supply station orbited a gas giant. Hundreds of cargo ships came and went, carrying resources to support the collective's war machine. "All ships, this is Admiral Han." She spoke into her communication system. "Remember, we are asteroids until the moment we strike. Hold formation and wait for my signal." Her Wraith squadron consisted of 30 ships that had been modified to look like space rocks. Their hulls were covered with fake stone and ice. Their engines produced no visible exhaust. To Vorthak sensors, they appeared to be nothing more than debris drifting through the system. On the supply station, Vorthak workers loaded containers of biological materials harvested from their latest victim species. They had no idea that 30 human warships were slowly floating toward them, hiding among real asteroids. "Distance to target 50,000 kilometers, reported Han's navigation officer. "Maintain course and speed," Han replied. "Do not power up weapons until I give the order." This was the new way humans fought. They had learned patience from years of hiding. They could wait for hours or even days to get the perfect shot. The Vorthak, meanwhile, had grown lazy from centuries of easy victories. Dr. Wansik Cho worked in his mobile laboratory aboard one of the fleet's support ships. Around him, vials of different colored liquid sat in careful rows. Each one contained a different biological weapon designed to kill Vorthak or their allies. His greatest success was a virus that attacked the artificial proteins the Vorthak needed to survive. Once infected, a Vorthak warrior would weaken and die within days. Better yet, the virus spread through their communication systems, jumping from ship to ship through their biological computer networks. "Doctor, how many doses do we have ready?" asked his assistant. "Enough to contaminate 3 Vorthak fleets," Wansik replied. "But we need to get close enough to inject it into their systems. That means capturing one of their ships intact." Meanwhile, Captain In-young Kang led humanity's newest weapon, the Psychological Operations Division. Her ships did not carry guns or bombs. Instead, they carried cameras, computers, and the collected evidence of Vorthak atrocities. "Begin broadcast on all collective frequencies," In-young ordered her communications team. "Let their allies see what really happened to the Delphani." Across Vorthak space, the alien species that served the collective received an unexpected transmission. It showed footage of Delphani children being harvested for their biological materials. It showed Vorthak scientists experimenting on live prisoners. It showed the moment when the planet killers turned the ocean world into a ball of steam and rock. "This is what your partners do to intelligent species," said the human voice on the recording. "Today it was the Delphani. Tomorrow it will be you." Some of the collective's client species began to ask questions. Why had they never been allowed to meet with conquered species? Why did the Vorthak always handle integration of new worlds alone? Why were their own home systems suddenly being scanned by Vorthak survey ships? Back near the supply depot, Admiral Han's squadron was almost in position. The fake asteroids had drifted close enough to see individual Vorthak workers through. "The station's windows, all ships power up weapons," Han whispered into her communicator. "Target the station's reactor core and communication array, fire on my mark." The 30 ships suddenly came alive. Their asteroid disguises fell away to reveal sleek human warships bristling with alien weapons. Energy beams and missiles flew toward the supply station before the Vorthak even knew they were under attack. The station's shields failed within seconds. Its communication array exploded in a shower of sparks and metal. Its reactor core went critical and began to overload. "All cargo ships are trying to flee," reported Han's tactical officer. "Shall we pursue?" "Negative," Han replied. "Let them run. I want them to report what happened here." This was part of the human strategy. They did not try to hide their attacks anymore. They wanted the Vorthak to know that humans were still alive and fighting. They wanted their enemies to be afraid. The supply station exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the gas giant below. Hundreds of Vorthak workers died instantly. Months' worth of supplies and biological materials were destroyed. Within hours, news of the attack reached the Vorthak High Command. For the first time in their history, one of their major installations had been completely destroyed by an enemy force. "Impossible," said High Commander Vexthul to his subordinates. "The humans were all eliminated 25 years ago. We destroyed their homeworld ourselves." "The attack patterns match human tactics," replied his intelligence officer. "They used stealth technology and coordinated strikes just like the defense of Earth." Vexthul studied the reports of the attack. The humans had appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating effectiveness and vanished without trace. It was exactly the kind of guerrilla warfare that humans had used in their final days on Earth. "Begin deep space patrols," he ordered. "Find these human survivors and eliminate them, all of them this time." But finding the humans was like trying to catch shadows. General Bayek's fleet had already moved to a different star system. They used the same stealth technology that had allowed them to escape Earth's destruction, jumping from system to system faster than the Vorthak could track them. Admiral Kyung-ho Seo led the next major human operation. His target was even more ambitious than a supply depot. Intelligence reports showed a lightly defended Vorthak colony world with over 10 million alien civilians. "Are we really going to do this?" asked his second-in-command. "Attack a civilian target?" Kyung-ho's face was hard as metal. "They are not civilians. Every Vorthak alive supports the collective. Every one of them benefits from the murder of other species. They made themselves our enemies when they destroyed Earth." The human fleet positioned itself around the Vorthak colony world. Unlike the aliens' usual victims, the humans did not announce themselves or make demands. They simply began the attack. Human ships fired captured Vorthak planet-killer weapons at the colony's major cities. The same type of weapons that had destroyed Earth now turned Vorthak homes into glass and ash. For the first time in their species' history, the Vorthak experienced what it felt like to watch their world die. But the attack was also a trap. The colony world was bait, designed to draw the human fleet into a larger battle. Hidden Vorthak warships had been waiting in the system's outer asteroids, ready to surround and destroy the human attackers. "Admiral, massive Vorthak fleet emerging from hyperspace," reported Seo's sensor officer. 200 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. We are outnumbered 4-1. Kyung-ho smiled grimly. "Then it is a fair fight." The battle that followed became known as the Slaughter of Kepler 438. The Vorthak came expecting to destroy a few dozen human ships hiding in space. Instead, they found a fully armed warfleet that had been preparing for this moment for 25 years. Human ships moved like dancers, using their small size and superior speed to avoid the aliens' heavy weapons. They fired Dr. Cho's biological weapons into Vorthak vessels, watching as the enemy crews died from the inside out. They used psychological warfare broadcasts to turn the collective's allied species against each other. Most importantly, they fought with a fury that the galaxy had never seen before. Every human in the fleet remembered Earth. They remembered their dead families and their burned cities. They fought not just to win, but to make their enemies suffer. When the battle ended, the entire Vorthak fleet was destroyed. Not a single alien ship escaped to report what had happened. The colony world below was a dead rock, its cities melted and its population gone. "Send a message to all human fleets," Kyung-ho ordered, as he looked at the wreckage floating around his ship. "The Vorthak can be beaten. They can die just like any other species." But intelligence officer Yoo-jin Lee discovered that the victory had come at a cost. While studying captured Vorthak communication equipment, she found disturbing evidence that the battle had been recorded by hidden sensors. "General Bayek, we have a problem," she reported over the Ghostwire network. "The Vorthak were studying our tactics during the battle. They let us win so they could learn how we fight." The realization sent a chill through the human fleet. The aliens were adapting to human warfare faster than expected. They were learning to counter human stealth technology, human speed, and human weapons. They are preparing something big, Yujin continued. 30 years after Earth's death, Fleet Admiral Boram Lim stood among the wreckage of what had once been humanity's greatest fleet. The Vorthak counterstrike had been more devastating than anyone imagined. A third of their ships were destroyed, floating as twisted metal in the void. The survivors were scattered across hostile space, hunted like animals. "Admiral, we have lost contact with 17 fleet groups," reported her communications officer. "The Ghostwire network is damaged. We can only reach about half of our remaining forces." Boram stared at the tactical display showing red dots where human ships had been destroyed. Each dot represented 1,000 people, the last remnants of Earth's children. The Vorthak had adapted to human tactics faster than anyone thought possible. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked. "Maybe 250 spread across 12 star systems," came the grim reply. General Bayek's flagship was destroyed at the Battle of Wolf 359. Admiral Han is missing, presumed dead. Boram closed her eyes and felt the weight of her species' survival pressing down on her. They had fought so hard, sacrificed so much, only to find themselves closer to extinction than ever before. But in humanity's darkest hour, salvation came from an unexpected source. Deep in neutral space, diplomat Sang-wook Kim received a coded transmission on frequencies that no human had used in decades. "This is Iron Concordant Vessel Blade of Retribution calling human survivors," said a voice speaking in broken English. "We know you are listening. We have proposal." Sang-wook was Admiral Jae-won Kim's son, born on the evacuation ships during the flight from Earth. He had spent his life learning alien languages and studying galactic politics, preparing for the day when humanity might need to negotiate with other species. "This is Diplomat Kim of the Human Resistance Navy," he replied carefully. "State your business," the alien voice continued. "We are species who survived Vorthak extermination attempts. We have been waiting long time for someone strong enough to hurt the collective. You have proven you can make them bleed." A meeting was arranged in the ruins of an ancient space station in neutral territory. Sang-wook arrived with a small escort, not knowing what to expect. What he found changed everything. The Iron Concordant was not one species but dozens. They had all survived Vorthak attacks through cunning, luck, or sheer stubbornness. Some had hidden in the dark spaces between stars. Others had fled to the galactic rim where the collective rarely went. A few had even survived on worlds the Vorthak thought they had sterilized. Their leader was a being called Nexar Prime, from a species that looked like walking crystals. Her people had turned their entire civilization into mobile cities that could hide inside asteroid fields. "For 300 years we have watched the Vorthak grow stronger," Nexar Prime said through a translation device. "We have rescued who we could, saved what we could, but we were never strong enough to fight back. Until now." She showed Sang-wook intelligence data that made his blood run cold. The Vorthak were preparing something called the Final Harvest. They planned to strip mine the entire galactic core region, destroying over 400 billion sentient beings in the process. "Why tell us this?" Sang-wook asked. "Because you have done what we could not," replied another alien. This one from a species that resembled metallic spiders. "You have made the collective afraid. For the first time in their history, they are acting out of fear instead of confidence." The Iron Concordant had been watching humanity's war against the Vorthak with great interest. They had seen the destruction of supply depots, the assassination of collective commanders, the psychological warfare that was turning client species against their masters. "We offer alliance," said Nexar Prime. "Your tactics and fury combined with our resources and knowledge. Together, we might actually win." But the proposal split the human leadership. Commander Ye-jin Ro, who had become one of humanity's most successful raiders, argued against any alliance with aliens. "Every species in the galaxy stood by and watched while Earth burned," she said during an emergency council meeting. "Where were these brave allies 30 years ago? They waited to see if we could hurt the Vorthak before they offered help." Others disagreed. Admiral Boram Lim saw the practical reality of their situation. "We are dying," she said bluntly. "Our ships are breaking down. Our people are exhausted, our resources are almost gone. We need allies if we want to survive long enough to get revenge. The debate raged for days across the Ghostwire network. Some humans wanted to reject all alien help and fight alone until the bitter end. Others argued that defeating the Vorthak was more important than pride. Finally, Dr. Juwan Park, who had been working on biological weapons since childhood, made a discovery that changed everything. He was Taemin's son, born in the evacuation fleets and raised in the hidden colonies. I have found a way to reverse the Vorthak enhancement process, he announced during a secure transmission. I can turn them back into their original, weaker, form. But the procedure requires live subjects and equipment we do not have. The Iron Concordat had both. Their hidden bases contained medical facilities and captured Vorthak prisoners. More importantly, they had detailed biological data on the original Vorthak species from before their artificial enhancement. We could free their client species from biochemical dependence, Dr. Park explained. Imagine if the entire collective suddenly turned against the Vorthak because they were no longer addicted to enhancement drugs. The vote was close, but pragmatism won over pride. Humanity would accept alien allies, but only on their own terms. They would not be junior partners in someone else's war. They would lead the alliance, or there would be no alliance at all. The first joint operation was a test of both human resolve and alien commitment. Commander Ye Jin-ro led a combined fleet to attack a Vorthak research facility that contained data on the Final Harvest project. Remember, she told her mixed human and alien crews, we are not friends. We are weapons pointed at the same target. Watch your allies as carefully as you watch your enemies. The attack was a complete success. Human stealth technology got the fleet past Vorthak sensors. Alien energy weapons broke through their shields. The research facility was captured intact, along with dozens of Vorthak scientists and their complete database. But the victory revealed the true scope of what they faced. The Final Harvest was not just a mining operation. It was a plan to remake the entire galaxy in the Vorthak image, with every other species either dead or reduced to mindless slaves. They want to turn the galaxy into a giant machine, reported Dr. Park after studying the captured data. Every planet would be strip-mined. Every species would be eliminated or modified into biological tools. The Vorthak would be the only true intelligence left. Admiral Seojin Kwan, who had survived the destruction of her fleet at Wolf 359, proposed the unthinkable. We offer the collective a temporary ceasefire, she said. Give them a chance to surrender and face judgment instead of extinction. The suggestion shocked both humans and their new allies. Humanity had spent 30 years planning revenge. Many could not imagine stopping short of complete Vorthak annihilation. They killed 12 billion of our people, argued Commander Rowe. They destroyed our home. They hunted us like animals. Why should they deserve mercy? Because we are not them, replied Admiral Kwan. If we become monsters to fight monsters, what is the point of winning? The debate split the alliance before it had even truly begun. Some wanted to offer the Vorthak a chance at surrender and trial. Others demanded nothing less than complete extermination. In the end, they decided to let the collective make the choice. A message was sent to the Vorthak High Command through captured communication channels. It was simple and direct. Surrender now and face judgment for your crimes, or face total war. You have one standard galactic month to decide. The Vorthak response was swift and predictable. Instead of replying to the message, they launched a massive assault on the Alliance fleet. 3,000 collective ships, including their most powerful, dreadnoughts, attacked the human-alien base at the edge of the Terminus Nebula. The Battle of the Terminus Gate lasted for 18 hours. It was the largest space battle in galactic history, with over 4,000 ships fighting in the swirling gases of the nebula. Human ships darted between the massive alien vessels like deadly insects. Concordat forces provided heavy firepower and defensive screens. But the key to victory was Dr. Park's biological weapons. His enhanced viruses spread through the Vorthak fleet, causing their enhanced warriors to weaken and die. Ship after ship began to drift powerless as their crews succumbed to genetic breakdown. When the battle ended, The entire Vorthak core fleet was destroyed. Among the wreckage floated the flagship of High Commander Vextel, the alien who had personally overseen Earth's destruction 30 years earlier. "Send a message to every world in collective space," ordered Admiral Bo-Ram Lim as she surveyed the battlefield. "The Vorthak are not invincible. They can be beaten. They can die." The victory had consequences that reached across the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, collective client species rose in rebellion against their Vorthak masters. The biological enhancement, drugs that kept them loyal, stopped working as Dr. Park's virus spread through collective supply networks. But the Vorthak response was swift and brutal. 35 years after Earth died, Supreme Fleet Admiral Hai Wen-jung stood before the largest war fleet in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships from dozens of species floated in formation around her flagship. This was not just humanity's revenge anymore. This was the galaxy's last hope. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Jung." She spoke into the communication system that linked every ship in the massive armada. "Today we end the Vorthak Collective forever. For our dead worlds, for our murdered families, for every species they have destroyed." Among the fleet were humans who had never known Earth, born and raised in the darkness between stars. General Min Ho Choi led the ground assault forces, soldiers who had spent their entire lives training for this moment. They were faster than their ancestors, stronger from life in artificial gravity, and harder than steel from decades of loss. "Remember your training," Minho told his troops as they prepared their dropships. "The Vorthak are bigger and stronger, but they have never faced an enemy that wanted to kill them as much as we do." In her mobile laboratory, Dr. So Ryun made final preparations for humanity's ultimate weapon. She was engineer Dong Hyun Yoon's daughter, raised in the hidden colonies, and trained in biological warfare from childhood. Her father's work on ship design had kept humanity alive. Her work would decide whether they won or lost. "The virus is ready," she reported to Admiral Jung. "Once deployed, it will spread through every Vorthak in the galaxy within days. Their enhanced bodies will break down and return to their original weaker form." The weapon was elegant in its cruelty. The Vorthak had made themselves dependent on artificial enhancement to become perfect warriors. Dr. Yoon's virus would take that away, leaving them as weak and vulnerable as they had been before they began their conquest of the galaxy. But the moral weight of the weapon troubled some of the Alliance leaders. "Are we really going to devolve an entire species?" asked Nexar Prime of the Iron Concordat. "This is genocide, just like what they did to others." Admiral Jung's face was hard as the metal of her ship. "They chose this path when they destroyed Earth. Every Vorthak alive has blood on their hands. Every one of them has benefited from the murder of innocent species." The final assault began with coordinated strikes on all 12 Vorthak core worlds simultaneously. Admiral Tae-Young Kim, daughter of the admiral who had died with Earth, led the attack on the Collective's throne world. Captain Do-Hyun Lee coordinated strikes on the other 11 systems, but the Vorthak had prepared for this day. As the Alliance fleet entered their home systems, massive defense networks came online. Planet-killer weapons that had once destroyed other worlds now targeted the attacking ships. "They are using their own homeworlds as fortresses," reported Captain Lee. "Every major city has been converted into a military base. Every civilian is now a soldier." The battle for the Vorthak core worlds was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Space itself seemed to burn as thousands of ships exchanged fire. Across multiple star systems, human stealth ships darted between massive alien dreadnoughts. Concordat energy weapons carved through Vorthak armor. On the surface of the throne world, General Min Ho Choi's ground forces fought through cities that had been turned into giant weapons. Every building was a fortress. Every street was a killing field. The Vorthak defenders fought with the fury of a species that knew it was about to die. "They are not surrendering," Min-ho reported to Admiral Jung. "Even when surrounded, even when defeated, they fight to the death." This was what 35 years of hatred had created. The Vorthak could no longer imagine a universe where they were not the dominant species. They would rather die than live in a galaxy ruled by others. In space above the throne world, Admiral Jung faced the most difficult decision in human history. Dr. Yoon's bioweapon was loaded and ready to deploy. One word from her would begin the process that would turn every enhanced Vorthak in the galaxy back into their original, helpless form. But philosopher Captain Yoon Seok Shin, one of the few humans who still remembered Earth's peaceful ways, made a final appeal for mercy. Admiral, we have won. The collective is broken. Their fleets are destroyed. We can offer them the same choice they gave our ancestors: surrender and face judgment, or extinction. Young looked at the tactical display showing the devastation around her. Alliance ships burned alongside Vorthak vessels. The space around the 12 core worlds was filled with the wreckage of both sides. Millions had already died in the final battle. Send the message, she decided. One chance. Surrender now or face biological extinction. The transmission was sent to the Vorthak High Council on their throne world. It was simple and direct. Your fleets are destroyed. Your worlds are surrounded. Surrender and face trial for your crimes, or we will deploy a weapon that will end your species forever. The Vorthak response came not in words, but in actions. Deep beneath their throne world, they activated their own doomsday weapon. Rather than accept defeat, they would destroy their entire solar system and take as many enemies with them as possible. Admiral, massive energy buildup detected from the planet's core, reported Young's sensor officer. They are going to crack their own world apart. The explosion will destroy everything in this system. Young had seconds to make the choice that would define humanity's future. She could order an immediate retreat and save the Alliance fleet, but that would allow the Vorthak to escape and continue their campaigns of destruction. Or she could deploy the bioweapon immediately, hoping to disable the doomsday device before it could activate. Deploy the virus, she ordered. All ships maximum acceleration away from the planet. We have maybe 10 minutes before their world explodes. Dr. Yoon's weapon spread from the Alliance fleet like an invisible wind. It passed through Vorthak, shields and armor as if they did not exist, designed to target the specific genetic markers of their enhanced biology. On the surface of the throne world, Vorthak warriors began to collapse as their enhanced bodies failed. Their increased strength faded, their improved reflexes slowed, their artificial intelligence enhancements shut down. In the underground command center, the Vorthak High Council found themselves unable to complete the activation sequence for their doomsday weapon. Their enhanced minds could no longer process the complex calculations needed, but the weapon was already partially activated. The planet's core continued to destabilize, building toward an explosion that would sterilize the entire system. All ground forces, immediate evacuation, ordered General Choi as he watched Vorthak soldiers around him stumble and fall like children. The planet is going to die whether we stop them or not. Admiral Jung made the final command decision that would echo through galactic history. Instead of retreating to safety, she ordered the Alliance fleet to move closer to the dying world. All ships with tractor beams target the major population centers, she commanded. We are going to evacuate as many as we can before this world explodes. It was an act of mercy that shocked both sides. Even as the Vorthak doomsday weapon charged toward detonation, human ships risked themselves to rescue their enemies. Tractor beams lifted entire cities full of now helpless Vorthak from their doomed world. The planet exploded in a flash of light visible across the galaxy. Where the Vorthak throne world had been, there was now only an expanding cloud of gas and debris. But in the cargo holds of Alliance ships, thousands of former Vorthak warriors huddled together. No longer the enhanced super soldiers who had terrorized the galaxy. The bioweapon continued to spread across Vorthak space. On world after world, the enhanced aliens found themselves weak and confused as their artificial biology failed. Their empire, built on technological superiority and enhanced warriors, crumbled within days. But the victory came at a terrible cost. The Vorthak collective was broken, but so was most of galactic civilization. Entire sectors had been devastated by the final war. Trillions of beings had died in the fighting. The galaxy would need centuries to recover from the damage. Admiral Young found herself in command not just of the Alliance fleet, but of the task of rebuilding galactic society. The former Vorthak client species looked to her for guidance. The survivors of destroyed worlds needed new homes. The captured Vorthak prisoners required food and shelter. "What do we do with them?" asked General Choi, gesturing toward a group of former Vorthak warriors who sat on the deck of his ship like lost children. Without their enhancements, they were physically weak and mentally slow, no more dangerous than human civilians. Jung studied the aliens who had once been her species' greatest enemy. They looked frightened and confused, unable to understand what had happened to them or their empire. "We put them on trial," she decided. "Let the galaxy judge them for their crimes. But we do not murder helpless prisoners, no matter what they once were." 50 years after the end of the war, Ambassador Yoon Soo Nam stood before the new Galactic Assembly. She was a descendant of the survivors, born in the rebuilt colonies that now dotted human space. The scars of the old war had healed, but the lessons remained. "The question that haunts our new order," she said to the representatives of dozens of species, "is whether a civilization born from vengeance can learn to build peace." Humanity had won their war against the Vorthak collective, but the victory had changed them forever.